What's going on, franchise world? Welcome to season 2, episode 16. Today we are talking with Erik Van Horn, who really is a protector of all things franchisees. Let me welcome in Charles Nicola and Erik. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. What I would love for you to do, Erik, is frame things up. Tell us what's going on in your world, who you're working with these days, state of franchising, anything that's on your mind as it relates to franchising.
Man, I've got so much on my mind. Thank you. Thanks for having me on here. I've been looking forward to this. So, what's been going on? The franchisee, franchisor, and then people wanting to buy a franchise. I kind of work with all three and have insight into all three worlds, and I'm in all three worlds. So I'm a franchise broker, franchise consultant, and my brand's I Love Franchising. And we'll kind of start there, and then I'll dive into some other things. But the COVID has changed the world on like what people are thinking, what they're wanting to buy, what they're comfortable with now, and it's caused some things that are just unique. I mean, when COVID first started, everyone was freaking out and thinking certain industries are just doomed, and then comes to find out some of these industries that we thought were doomed are actually doing very, very well. Example of that, like the RV industry, they're just crushing it. Anything outside, like I'm a mountain biker. My bike shop is sold out of bikes. Hard to find an RV and you're paying more for this stuff. So talked to owners early on. They thought the world was going to end and they were canceling boat orders, RV orders, and now they can't get enough in. So I'm seeing this unknown out there in the world of franchising, and people that think they know or making decisions based on emotion or just reaction to whatever. It's probably not the best thing to do, and just really get educated. Think about the home service space in general. As a broker, I think about that. And there's certain things where franchisors are doing really well. And the question is it short-term or long-term? People are spending money inside their homes to get stuff done, fixed, looking better, more comfortable, because they're spending a lot more time at home now. So there's a lot of different things. Certain service-based sectors are just exploding. Others in service-based are not so much. Certain brick and mortars are doing really well. Most are not. It's not really an exciting time to get into brick and mortar as a somebody that's wanting to get into franchising. At the franchisor level, what I'm seeing is a lot of franchisors are pivoting. They're having to pivot during this time. And that's a buzzword that's probably way overused right now. But I do see franchisors pivoting into something that helps their franchisees become more profitable, and their system set up for that. Others are not able to pivot, or they're not pivoting. And so, franchisor leadership is something that I'm putting a lot of weight into, to seeing how the franchisors are actually responding to their franchisees in terms of helping support and doing things that are not really making the franchisor money. The other thing I look at are where are they putting their money as a franchisor, and how are they leading their franchisees? So franchisors are having an opportunity to really step it up and prove to their franchisees, not having to prove to them, but in the middle of it, proving to their franchisees that they are that true business partner that a lot of franchisors and franchisees get into business together for that partnership. And I see that some good things and some bad things with that. As a franchisee, having to make decisions all the time on what to do. Do I grow? Do I expand? Do I pull back? Do I let people go? Do I furlough them? And then how do I grow in this new world? And so I set up a franchisee mastermind to help franchisees during this time. So I've got that going on just to help franchisees. And in the middle of that, it helps me because I'm in the middle of it with these franchisees, trying to figure out how we do well in this. So I took up more time than I needed in that, but that's kind of to set the stage of what I see going on.
Erik, you hit on so many issues, and I'm a big fan of both of your websites. I Love Franchising and Franchising Secrets. And, on a superficial level, people say those are marketing. But when you get into the detail of what you do, and when you get into the content, there's authenticity and care. And in many ways, I think, there's right now, whether it's I Love Franchising or your mastermind groups, I think you're touching at a level very few people touch at. And if I could just go back to RV sales, bike shops, no one would ever imagine these are new tech, like hyper growth industries right now, which just blows my mind, right? Bicycle shops, you got boxes outside, people waiting to get inside. So definitely everything shifted. And I'm smart enough to know I'm not smart enough to know what's coming next. But what I do love is that you're talking about your franchisee mastermind groups. And I would challenge, there's knowledge base there that we're not even seeing in the marketplace yet. So, I mean, in line with, hey, you never would have expected bike shops being hyper growth companies, where are you seeing the shift in franchisee sentiment, what they're focused on, what they care about in life? Like, and it could be little things, but where's the shift happening? And where would you expect a question that no one can answer? Where does that shift lead 5 years from now?
Gosh, that's a good one. First, I am like, my goal is to be super authentic, and it's also polarizing. I'm a straight C student, that lives in a small town in the middle of nowhere. And, and I don't hide that fact. I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. And either people like that or they don't like it. And I know I've failed in business before. I've had a lot of successes, but I've had failures. I'm not afraid to talk about that kind of stuff. So I think that's the kind of stuff that it resonates with people, and it attracts the right people. Like even within my mastermind, I'm attracting people that want to be authentic with each other, that want to talk about the failures, that want to talk about the things that work, that want to help each other. So even within that mastermind group, it starts out with a free Facebook group, and the free Facebook group is Franchisee Tribe, the Franchise Tribe. And so anybody can find that. And if you're a franchisee, just join that for free. And you'll see I've had some really cool guests and people in there, but it's a giving group. And my goal, it wasn't to just make that about me, because otherwise it's just about me. And I want to create a group where people help each other. So we got a lot of people in there, and people are starting to help each other in that free Facebook group called Franchise Tribe. But what I see happening, and I've been asking a lot of people this, to the different pain points that they have in their business and where they want to go in their lifestyle. What I see happening are people are wanting lifestyle now more than ever before, and not just the lifestyle to have Lamborghinis or more. But for me, it's boats and outdoor funds. For other people, it's fancy cars. It's not just about that. People are either they're enjoying time with their family right now, or they can't wait to get out. For me, I'm loving this time with the family, and I'm figuring out a way to have more time with my family, more time to do the things that I want to do. And I'm seeing that when I ask people in the franchisee mastermind, what do you guys want? And that's a lot of that. They want to create that lifestyle where they're not stressed about their businesses. They're not stressed about just trying to grow and get bigger and make all the kinds of money that you can make, because if you can't do anything with that money, at the end of the day, we're just left with our time. And so I see a lot of people just wanting to gain back their time, wanting to, one of the sessions that we had in the franchisee mastermind that really resonated, I brought on my personal assistant for an hour and a half with everybody. And like, here she is. What do you want to learn from her on how to work with a personal assistant? And I learned this from my friend Cameron Harold. He's written numerous books, and he coaches a lot of franchisors, and they're at their at the COO level. And he's told me one time, and he tells a lot of people this. So he's like, if you don't have a personal assistant, you are a personal assistant. And I see so many people in their businesses, they're doing the personal assistant work. And I realized that was me, again, doing the things that I shouldn't be doing in my business. And so what COVID's done is it's really allowed me to push a lot of the stuff off that I was doing in my business to my personal assistant, to my right hand man, Michael, so they could do a lot of stuff, empower them to do more stuff, keep them employed, keep elevating what they're learning because they're doing new stuff with me. So like I'm doing more of that. And just the other day, my wife, last night, she said, babe, you were just not working very much. Like you were around all day yesterday. And I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but she's like, you used to be on the phone all the time and you're just not on the phone all the time. And I was out riding horses with my girls in the early afternoon. So I see that happening more and more to the right person, to the person that used to be wanting just to look busy, be busy and make more money. They're wanting to work out of their business, be more cognizant of how to their business to make money, but not to ruin their lives being a business owner.
Erik, a lot to unpack there, but I want to start on one topic of authenticity, right? That it's a term that a lot of franchisors use to describe their business, but the reality is, if we start at the beginning, they were an authentic brand and they meant well and they became a franchise, and then you get into this thing called franchise sales. And unfortunately, no matter how much we try convincing them that you should use the word development versus sales, they don't. And then they say, I spent X on Google ads, I got Y. So now all we've done is we've taken out the authenticity of who's going to buy into the brand. We've put sales on top of it, and we're judging things in a way almost like we're selling a pack of gum. And the reality is, buying a franchise, you're talking about someone most likely leaving a job or leaving a career, taking all of the money that they have, and that could be in their home, that could be in retirement, and investing it to hopefully build some wealth that will impact their family. That tends to be the pathway to go. And there's certainly business operators that buy underperforming units and build up businesses. That's a different type of franchisee. But the bulk of franchisees come into this in a world where we're not seeing brands be authentic. It is all about the money. It's about the money on the franchise fee. The broker world, unfortunately, is not overly authentic. We're not telling the buyer that, truth be told, you're going to pay an increased franchise fee that's going to go to the franchisor that they're going to get, and they're going to hand it right back to us. So we're not coaching for free. We're actually coaching for thousands and thousands of dollars. So is there a moment where we get to having more authentic conversations? Is there a moment where brands say, hey, instead of having, I'm going to get 50 more units next year, they go, I'm going to add 10, and then 10 after that, and then we're going to add 15 and 15, and all of a sudden we're a 100-unit good brand. Is that ever going to change, or it is what it is?
Well, I talk to a lot of newer brands, people that have a successful business and they want to franchise it, and I have a devil on both sides of my shoulder saying, this is one way to do it, and this is the other way to do it. And there's different ways to grow. And I think just getting content like what we're creating today, of like when franchisors are just talking about, we've sold 50 units or 100 units or whatever their measurement of success is for that tells you where they are, and their success is selling more units. Others are, we've had same store sales, year over year growth, or whatever it is. And I think it's just important for you as a franchise buyer to know what kind of system you're buying into. And I think existing franchisees, if you've ever been a franchisee, you have a level of understanding that a new franchisee doesn't. And so maybe you want to be a part of that growth where it is, they are selling fast. And if they're selling fast, once they hit that kind of magical 100 units open or whatever that number is for that brand, that they will probably sell to private equity. And then you're in a completely new environment. So I think it's just, I'm seeing more brands that are wanting to grow more organically, like what you just described, where they're bringing in a handful of franchisees, learning with them, and then improving the system with them. And then the second group that comes in the second year later, not the next 50 or 100, but the next 10 or 15, like you said, build off of that. And then it's slower growth like that. Let me hit one thing real quick. You mentioned like franchise. I'll say this, and I'll talk to like the franchisors out there, but people looking at buying a franchise, you'll read into this as well. Franchise franchisors that want to have that fast growth because they want to sell to private equity are going to have an in-house sale or probably outsource their sales. And the outsourced sales team is not cheap. And then they're going to use the broker world, which I'm a part of. They're going to use the broker world, which is not cheap. So at the end of the day, whatever you're paying to that franchisor for a franchise fee is not going to the franchisor to help grow their systems. It's going to the brokers and it's going to the salespeople. And that's just the way it works. Now, others that are growing more organically, they're taking the risk to try to find franchisees, and they don't have any experience finding franchisees or don't know where to go, or they don't have a really good strategy to get them, or they don't have a really good avatar or perfect person for that franchise system, then it's going to be really hard to grow organically. So like what we're doing, so I'm starting a roofing franchise. And as a franchisor, it's my first entry into the franchisor world. And we have these internal conversations. Me being a broker guy, I'm saying, let's not go into the broker networks right away. And some of the others it gave me some really good food for thought. And they're like, Eric, if we don't go into the broker networks, we're wanting to make our money off of royalties, not franchise fees. So I get that. But I don't want to grow too fast because of the points that you and I were just kind of talking about. But if we don't grow fast enough, we don't have enough franchisees to learn from. So that's the rub. And so for us personally, knowing everything that I know, which is limited, I want to go into some of the broker networks to get enough franchisees, but be selective with them as well. So we're not getting the wrong franchisees or getting too many franchisees. And that's kind of the middle ground. And it was only recently that I was okay with that to just be real on kind of on the inside of what we're doing on the roofing franchise, because I said, let's just start slow growth, but we needed enough to be able to have a good enough franchisee base to get started with.
Startup franchisors, and everything that you said makes sense, Eric, right? And I'm a big believer in the broker networks, especially for qualifying and bringing qualified franchisee candidates. I'm just curious if we haven't changed anything in the franchise sales world, really in the past decade. And when Nick talks about an authentic process and authenticity, in many ways, other than the connections that brokers make between franchisors and candidates, I think franchisors and especially startup franchisors are at a disadvantage because they don't have that ability to connect directly with the franchisee candidates. And then there's strength in numbers, right? So if I'm a broker, the competent thing for me to do is to go with a system that has validation. So right away, I don't have that channel, which is a good channel. And now I'm going to there's all other predators out there, whether it's all this marketing that's never going to work. So and I see it with these developers too, that promise we're going to make these sales. I don't have a solution, but my question is this: have we reached a point where there needs to be a reset, especially for the startup franchisors? And getting to what Nick's point is about authenticity. So should someone just warn, and we represent a ton of startup franchisors and we have a process, but should there be a big giant warning sign of, hey, you need to find a new path here? Because this path's not going to work. They're going to take your money and you're going to end up with bad franchisees that aren't a good fit.
I love that. Thanks for bringing it back to basically kind of the authenticity in the sales process and how are we changing that. So yeah, thanks for bringing it back to that. Whenever I'm as a broker, whenever I just got done talking to a bunch of franchisors in a little, couple day meeting that we had where I got access to franchisors to talk to them. And this is how, I'm probably pretty unique in this, but not completely. There's a lot of really good brokers that probably dive into the same things. But when I'm in front of a franchisor that's trying to tell me why I should send candidates to them as potential franchisees, they start going into a sales pitch, which I don't need a sales pitch. They start giving me item 7, which is the startup cost, and item 19, which is earnings. They start giving me that information. And these are the real conversations. I'm like, thanks for the item 7, item 19. I don't believe any of them. And this is the actual conversations that I had with about 15 franchisors last week. I don't believe anybody's item 7, item 19. What I really believe is what most of the franchisees are saying is what it costs them to get started. Yeah. And that's what I believe. I don't believe item 7 or item 19 because that could be a unicorn. Maybe it's a unicorn in the person that was a very good franchisee and they had experience where most the average person doesn't. Or maybe it's a specific market that is really unique. Maybe it's a bigger territory that used to be bigger. Now it's not. There's so many things that are unknown. And even me owning 7 different brands over the last 20 years in many different states, I'm not smart enough to pick out why they might be a unicorn. And because I've made mistakes with that. And so I know enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know how somebody has packaged the numbers that has access to all of the data that I don't have access to. Now, with that said, that sounds like I'm really cynical and I don't believe anything a franchisor says. Some ways I don't until I get comfortable with franchisees telling me what it's really like. But on the flip side, I've had franchisors that have been very upfront with their item 19. I get into it and what they put in their item 19 is very factually accurate and leading me to believe what I meant to believe. And I think that's the problem. People are led to believe something that may not be true. So with franchisors, so continue this conversation with a franchisor. What's your item 19 say? Okay, great. What are franchisees actually saying? And I have a couple questions, and this is just inside what I do as a broker, because I'm not able to tell people that work with me how well they're going to do or any expectations whatsoever, but I want to know myself. So I ask them, when will they cash flow break even? And then the franchisor will give me a couple, well, so-and-so in Florida did this. I'm like, no, I don't want unicorns. And I say the name unicorns. I don't want unicorns. I want what your average person's going to do, what you would think they're going to do. And then I reframe the question, not like, what can they do? But what would you feel super comfortable with that they're going to hear in validation? And a lot of times it comes, that's when I get that accurate picture. And some of these service-based ones that are reoccurring revenue, it's a longer break-even point than it is for the transactional service-based ones. And it's just the way the business models work. So I like to get into that with them, but unfortunately, the franchise candidates really don't know what they're getting into. Here's another thing that I have a really hard time with. When especially in the service-based business, it happens in retail too, they tell you, this is a semi-absentee business model. This is semi-absentee, and they sell it as semi-absentee. And I know that, boy, that's probably not semi-absentee. They say, well, talk to so-and-so. They did it semi-absentee. Well, they started out, 5 years working it, and now they're semi-absentee. That doesn't cut it. Semi-absentee business, in my mind, is someone that can have a normal job, keep their job, and start a business because they pay a manager a good salary to be able to manage the business. And that manager has enough business sense to be able to manage it for this person that's working full time. That's semi-absentee. And if somebody, there's a difference between saying you're semi-absentee and validating semi-absentee. So I love it when I get franchisors that validate semi-absentee. And once you start getting into that question with franchisors, that list gets really, really small. But I think, these conversations that there's got to be a better way to get accurate information out there. And I think it starts with validation, guys. I mean, in my mind, that's like the most important thing when you're looking at a franchise to buy as a prospective franchisee. And it's really easy to start just asking normal questions that really don't dive into the nuances of the business to see if you can do what they're doing, because most people just aren't armed with the right questions to ask, or they ask really pointed yes or no questions that really don't get into it. So it's got to start in validation, and franchisors, if they're just really open with validation and let people talk to a bunch of different franchisees and just position them the right way, I mean, that's probably the best thing that a franchisor could do.
Erik, it's fantastic advice. We've obviously hit our time, but I want to close on a few thoughts. And I would welcome this as part one of however many times we want to have a discussion about this. But the validation, I think that's going to be the area of opportunity. We're going to see the reaction or approach change. If we go back 10 years ago, item 19 is not really a thing. It's not there. It's not built the way that it could be. Now we flash forward, and it is a big part of the way that we tell stories. Validation, though, what I like to know is, one, would you do it again? And that question opens up the chain. But like the back of a baseball card, I want to see how many franchisees are still growing with the brand, because that to me is validation. If you're still scaling it, and right now that's not a part of the storytelling, we're like, here's the financials. And look, if you gave me a crappy brand, say a self-serve frozen yogurt brand, I could at least give you a pathway on how you make it successful. And that's the thing, like the numbers are irrelevant to the individual that comes into the system, which is why people like you, if franchisors are listening, you're protecting them, because a franchisor should want someone who wants to scale, wants to make you more money while making them the own. And you're obviously protecting the industry, and we're grateful for that. So thank you for the conversation. I wish we had 3 hours to talk about this. Yeah. We might be the only ones. And frankly, for you, me, and Charles, if we flash back to us as little children playing baseball and said someday someone's going to say that there's a business called I Love Franchising, we'd be like, get out of here. I love baseball.
So true.
So we appreciate it. Thanks, Erik. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Take
Erik.
care.